A werewolf romance audiobook. Chapter 1. The air in the Tower Ballroom, site of the annual Zenith Ball, was thick enough to chew. It wasn't just the humidity of 800 bodies or the cloying, heavy scent of wealth. It was the sharp, metallic tang of alpha dominance, the soft, sweet notes of dozens of beta and omega submission, and the glittering, hard edges of social ambition. Lydia Watson, a beta-level omega who lived 2 suppressed paychecks away from financial ruin, stood tucked into a drapery-shrouded alcove. Her scent was naturally faint, a nervous, muted hint of rainwater and old parchment, and tonight it was further dulled by a low-grade, pharmacist-provided suppressant patch. She was an oil stain on silk, a shadow in a room built of mirrored surfaces and light. She wore a borrowed, deep blue gown that felt like a cage and sipped lukewarm, flat champagne. Every woman here seemed to drip with diamonds, their scents potent and vibrant, lush florals, bold spices, and bright, glittering citrus notes that announced their elevated status and desirable lineage. Lydia, a line cook for a grueling downtown restaurant, was only here because her roommate, Olivia, a high-energy, brazen beta journalist, had dragged her along. "You need to stop hiding, Lyd. Even an alpha king needs a break from the alpha queen sometimes," Olivia had cheerfully declared, before promptly disappearing to track down a source. Lydia was miserable. She was a ghost, and she preferred it. She had learned the hard way that visibility only led to pain and debt, a lesson etched into her finances by her last relationship. Then the murmurs began. They started at the entrance and swept through the room like a sudden, fierce wind, pulling every head and stopping every conversation. The collective scent of the room, the ambition, the perfume, the dominance, suddenly thinned. "It's Jace," someone whispered, fear and awe mingling in their voice. Jace, no last name was ever needed. He was the alpha king of the city, not by title or monarchy but by sheer undisputed power. His territory extended over everything that mattered: finance, infrastructure, and the dark, hidden seams where power truly resided. The crowd near the massive, arched entrance to the ballroom parted like the Red Sea. Even the high-ranking alphas, large, muscled men in custom suits, recoiled, their scents involuntarily dipping into notes of respect and deference. He stepped into the light. He was a force of nature dressed in charcoal. Tall, yes, but it was the presence that mattered. His shoulders were broad, his walk a coiled, predatory glide. His face was sharp, carved from granite, and entirely lacking in observable emotion. But what hit Lydia, even from across the room, was his scent. It wasn't a cologne. It was a primal, devastating mix of scorched cedar, cool mountain air, and a faint, terrifying note of smoked musk. It hammered through her suppressant patch like a physical blow, bypassing her logical brain and hitting the raw omega instinct she always fought to keep buried. Alpha, apex, dominance. Her legs trembled, a purely biological reaction. She gripped the glass so hard her knuckles bleached white. The alpha king scanned the room, his dark eyes seeming to cut through the glittering facade and the layers of scent, dismissing the powerful and the beautiful with the flick of a glance. Then disaster. A waiter, distracted by the gravity of Jace's entrance, misjudged the tight space. He slammed his elbow into the marble ledge beside Lydia. She startled, the fragile champagne glass slipping from her damp fingers. It didn't shatter. Instead, it struck the marble railing, bounced and flipped, sending a spray of cheap, sticky liquid directly onto the cuff of a high-ranking alpha senator's pristine white suit. A gasp echoed in the sudden, Jace-induced silence. The senator, a stocky alpha named Marcus with a booming territorial scent, rounded on Lydia, his face instantly crimson. "You clumsy little omega," he snarled, his voice pitched high with rage. His alpha scent spiked into aggressive territory, a nasty, sharp rush of spoiled milk and anger meant to trigger fear and apology. Lydia froze. Marcus's scent was overwhelming her weak defenses. She felt her knees buckling, a wave of instinctual submission washing over her, her faint rainwater scent turning sour with panic. Her internal omega whined, ready to apologize, cower, and flee. I am so sorry, sir," she stammered, dropping the remaining stem of the glass. Marcus raised a hand not to hit but to emphatically dismiss her, his territorial scent expanding to push her further into the corner. "Get out of my sight. I'll have security." A new scent slammed into the air, silencing Marcus mid-sentence. The cedar and smoked musk, now closer, sharper, and utterly dominant. Jace had moved. He stood 3 feet away from Lydia, having crossed the vast ballroom in a handful of silent, purposeful strides. He didn't look at Marcus, but the Alpha Senator immediately deflated, his scent shriveling down to a nervous, faint whisper of fear. Jace's voice was low, resonant, and dangerous. It was the sound of bedrock shifting. "The mistake was the waiter's, Senator, and I believe the waiter is gone now." He finally looked at Marcus, and the command in his tone was absolute. "Do not speak to her again." Marcus swallowed hard, his face pale. He simply nodded and retreated without a word, fussing uselessly at his ruined cuff. The crowd, momentarily distracted by the confrontation, was now utterly frozen, focused entirely on the Alpha King who had intervened for the sake of an unknown, invisible Omega. Lydia's heart pounded against her ribs. She was trembling, but now the tremor was less about fear of the Senator and more about the overwhelming, protective presence of Jace. His scent was so close it was intoxicating, a dense, warm blanket of security and raw, potent power that made her weak Omega hormones sing in recognition. She looked up. Jace's eyes, the color of dark, polished mahogany, were fixed entirely on her. She had been invisible a moment ago. Now she was the sole object of the most powerful man in the city. He reached out. His fingers were long and warm as they wrapped around her wrist, his touch utterly possessive, bypassing her suppressed skin and reaching the core of her biology. "You are Lydia," he stated, not a question but a fact. His voice dropped to a level only she could hear, a deep rumble that vibrated through her bones. "I noticed things like a beautiful, quiet Omega trying to hide her scent while everyone else flaunts their power." He gently but firmly pulled her out of the alcove, into the center of the spotlight she dreaded. His body shielded her from the 100 pairs of curious eyes. He held her wrist for a long, charged moment. The scent of him was all-consuming. It felt like being placed in a private storm of protection and primal hunger. Then the final, devastating question, delivered in the alpha tone that demanded absolute compliance, yet phrased as a polite inquiry. "Will you dance with me?" Chapter 2. Lydia couldn't speak. Her internal Omega was screaming 2 conflicting directives: submit and accept the Alpha's protection, and run before he destroys your fragile independence. The scent of cedar and smoke was making her dizzy, overwhelming the artificial peace of her suppressant. "Nod, Omega," Jace commanded, his voice firm, his grip on her wrist tightening just enough to send a clear message. "You will not refuse me." She gave a small, jerky nod. He didn't wait for a verbal answer. His large, hot hand shifted from her wrist to the small of her back, a move of absolute possession that made her shiver. His fingers brushed the curve of her waist, and the heat instantly radiated through the silk of her dress. "Good," he murmured, his gaze never leaving hers. He guided her onto the dance floor. The orchestra, sensing the shift in mood and the focus of the Alpha King, seamlessly transitioned into a slow, elegant waltz. As he pulled her into the formal dance position, the intimacy was terrifying. Her hand rested on his broad shoulder, feeling the hard muscle beneath the fabric, while his other hand secured hers in a powerful, firm clasp. Their bodies were dangerously close, close enough that his heavy, protective alpha scent completely enveloped her faint one, effectively masking her from the rest of the room. It was a powerful, silent declaration: "This one is mine." "You are trembling, Lydia Watson," Jace observed, his mahogany eyes drilling into hers. I am not used to the attention, Alpha," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. The title felt alien and yet perfectly right on her tongue. He moved them with incredible grace, effortlessly navigating the crowded floor. For such a large, imposing man, he was fluid and light on his feet. "Then get used to it," he stated simply. "I do not forget what I have seen, and once I have claimed a space, I do not relinquish it." She looked around. Every eye in the ballroom was on them. The whispering had stopped. People were watching with a mixture of confusion and intense, desperate curiosity. The Alpha King, who never danced, who never showed interest in the socialites or the high-ranking lineage Omegas, was currently holding a virtually unknown, quiet girl. Why, she asked, the question escaping before her conscious mind could stop it. Why me? I'm nobody here. Jace's lips curved into a predatory, unsettling smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. That is exactly why. You are not tainted by this circus, Omega. You smell of rainwater and honesty, not false ambition and perfume. You are clean. The word Omega sent a shockwave through her. It wasn't just a classification, it was a weight, a label she spent her life trying to overcome. My scent is faint, she defended weakly. Faint but not invisible to me, he countered, leaning in close until she could feel the heat of his breath, thick with his scent, against her ear. It is the only thing here worth breathing, Lydia. Do you understand? The music swelled, trapping them in the moment. She felt her instincts starting to fray, the desire to submit and melt into the security of his presence, fighting a vicious war with her hard-won self-reliance. As they spun near the edge of the floor, a new scent aggressively muscled its way into Jace's territory, a sharp metallic spice that clashed violently with the cedar. Rowan Charles, the rival alpha. Rowan was a different type of power, younger, flashier, his dominance marked by brute financial force rather than Jace's entrenched, quiet control. He wore his ambition like a second skin. Rowan swaggered up to them, a dangerous, arrogant glint in his eye. Russo, Rowan greeted, using Jace's surname with a challenging emphasis. Stealing a dance with a stray Omega. Bit beneath you, isn't it? She looks overwhelmed. He paused, then smirked, directing a dismissive glance at Lydia. Let the girl go, Jace. Plenty of willing partners here for the real power play. Jace stopped moving. The music played on, but they were motionless. Jace's hand on Lydia's waist tightened, a signal of ownership that made her instinctively lean against him for balance. His cedar scent suddenly deepened, spiking with a dangerous, warning note, the primal odor of a male defending his territory. She is not stray, Jace's voice was dangerously quiet. She is with me, and she is not yours to dismiss, Rowan. Rowan scoffed, but the challenge faltered in his stance. He was powerful, but not a match for the Alpha King's primal authority. Just making sure she's safe, Rowan sneered, his eyes lingering on Lydia's wide, frightened eyes. Some Omegas get confused when the powerful take an interest. They forget the cost. Jace didn't respond to the threat. Instead, he simply returned his focus entirely to Lydia, effectively reducing Rowan Charles to thin air. He pulled her flush against his chest, dipping his head slightly. Do you want to continue this dance, Omega? He asked, his voice now a low, private growl demanding her loyalty. With Rowan's aggressive scent still burning her nose, the choice was easy. Safety, even if terrifying, was better than vulnerability. Yes, Alpha, she whispered, burying her face slightly in his tuxedo, inhaling the overwhelming scent of protection and command. Jace's tension eased immediately. The aggressive edge left his scent, replaced by a satisfying low-level thrum of contentment. He resumed the waltz, smoothly pivoting, ensuring Rowan Charles was entirely out of their orbit. Rowan remained frozen for another beat before retreating in defeat, the challenge failing. Good girl, Jace murmured into her hair. You are safe now, focus only on me. And for the rest of the song she did. She moved as he commanded, wrapped in his scent, the entire world outside the perimeter of his arms dissolving into noise and light. When the music finally ended, Jace did not release her. He merely moved his hand from her waist to her spine, guiding her with firm pressure through the crowd, towards a private exit only he could use. Where are we going? She asked, panic starting to return. Out of this noise, Jace said. I need to breathe something clean. Chapter 3. The Zenith Ball was a memory of perfume and fear. Within 10 minutes, Lydia found herself not on a crowded street, but in the shielded back seat of a sleek black vehicle that smelled faintly of expensive leather and overwhelmingly of Jace. Francis, Jace's head of security and a hulking, silent beater with a neutral, calm scent, sat quietly in the driver's seat. Jace hadn't let go of her hand once. He held it loosely but with absolute intent, his thumbs slowly stroking the sensitive skin of her palm. It felt less like affection and more like taking a reading. "I should go home," Lydia stated, finally finding her voice. "Olivia will be wondering where I went, and I have work at 5 a.m. "Your roommate knows you're safe," Jace said, not looking at her. He was speaking into a private channel built into the car's interior. "Francis sent her a coded message, and you are not going to work at 5 a.m. "I have to, I'm a line cook, Alpha. If I miss a shift, I'm fired. I need the money for my rent." Jace finally turned, his gaze sharp and piercing. "That stops now. You will not stand over a burning stove for a wage that barely keeps your scent patch stocked." Lydia pulled her hand away, offended. "You don't get to make my choices for me. I don't belong to you." "Correction," Jace said, leaning in. The intensity of his presence was like physical heat. "Every Omega belongs to someone whether they accept the claim or not. You belong to this city and this city belongs to me. By extension, you were already mine. I just noticed you first." He rubbed his temples, a flicker of irritation passing over his face. "I am not trying to intimidate you, Lydia. I am trying to offer you security. A pack protects its Omegas. You have no pack. I am offering mine." "I have Olivia. I have my job." "Your job is run by Philip, a petty, low-ranking alpha who treats his kitchen staff like trash. Your apartment is on the verge of collapsing. You are vulnerable. Rowan Charles recognized that tonight." Lydia blinked. "Rowan Charles, why would he care?" "He cares about anything that challenges my authority. Rowan is trying to absorb my territory. Seeing an attractive Omega, one I showed interest in, alone and easily dismissed, was a weakness he could exploit. If I hadn't intervened, he would have continued until he broke your spirit, or worse, until he had the perfect opportunity to claim you for his own purposes." The truth of his words struck her cold. Rowan's smile had been calculating. The car pulled up to a massive, imposing gate. Beyond it, looming against the night sky on a bluff overlooking the entire city, was a sprawling modern mansion, the Black Citadel Estate. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress carved from steel. "This is your home," Lydia whispered. "One of them," Jace corrected. "The most secure. We will talk here. Francis, you may leave us." Francis nodded once and smoothly opened the car door for Jace, then for Lydia. As Francis drove the car away, a large, silent man appeared instantly from the shadows, his presence a heavy, invisible shield. "Head up, Omega," Jace instructed, placing a hand on the small of her back again, guiding her up the massive stone steps. "In my house you walk with confidence." Inside, the citadel was minimalist and enormous. Marble floors stretched into vast living spaces, punctuated by enormous windows looking over the glittering city below. The space was utterly clean, smelling only of stone, clean air, and Jace's dominant scent. He led her to a private study, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, and handed one to her. "Drink this. It has a slight relaxant in it. It will help with the pheromonal shock you experienced tonight." Lydia was too tired, too overwhelmed, and too instinctively trusting of his powerful alpha direction to refuse. She sipped it. It was smooth, smoky, and warm. Jace sat behind a large, dark desk, placing his glass down. He looked less like a king and more like a CEO preparing for a hostile takeover. "Lydia, I didn't approach you simply because you were pretty. I approached you because you are a clean slate who needs a pack, and I need a mate who is not prepackaged with a million family ambitions. Your history is clean. Your debt, however, is not." Lydia gasped, the liquor nearly sloshing out of her glass. "You know about my debt." "Of course I know about your debt," Jace said, his tone suggesting this was a ridiculous question. "It's a few thousand in credit card and a nasty loan, totaling 18,000. It's a ridiculous burden for someone with your income. It was also recently purchased by a holding company tied directly to Rowan Charles." Lydia's blood ran cold. Rowan had been watching her, calculating her breaking point. "You've been targeted, Lydia," Jace continued, his eyes serious. "They were going to use your debt to force you into a contract, or worse. I bought the debt this evening. It is settled. You owe me nothing, but you are now under my personal protection. He pushed a thick, leather-bound document across the desk. It wasn't a contract, it was a deed. I also bought a vacant property on Heron Street Market this morning. It's a perfect space for a small, unique bistro. I know you dream of having your own restaurant. You leave Philip's kitchen immediately. You will manage this property. It is yours to build. Consider it payment for the protection I will provide. Lydia stared at the paper. Her entire life, her debt, her struggle, her deepest secret dream, was laid bare and then instantly erased and replaced by this powerful alpha in the span of one night. "This is too much," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "It is security," Jace corrected, standing up and coming around the desk. He took the glass from her shaking hand. "You have a choice, Lydia. You can reject the protection of my pack and live out your life in fear, working double shifts until Rowan Charles finds another way to seize you. Or you can accept my care, my territory, and my claim. You will work for me, but you will work on your dream." He looked down at her, the cedar scent washing over her with immense, irresistible force. He was offering a life she couldn't afford to dream of. "Will you accept my protection, Omega?" Chapter 4. Lydia felt like she was standing at the edge of a great chasm. On one side, the familiar, terrifying path of struggle, loneliness, and the looming threat of Rowan Charles. On the other, the immense, daunting shadow of Jace and his alpha world, offering absolute security at the cost of her fragile independence. I accept the protection," she whispered, the words heavy on her tongue. "But not the debt. I will work to pay you back for the loan and the restaurant property." Jace's expression didn't change, but his scent subtly relaxed, shifting from demanding to satisfied. "We will discuss the particulars later. For now, understand that my resources are not yours to worry about. Your immediate priority is safety and rest." He gently took her arm and led her away from the study. "You will stay here tonight. Francis has already brought some of your things from your apartment." Lydia stopped dead. "You went into my apartment." "Francis did," Jace corrected smoothly. "He is a beta and does not carry an alpha scent that would panic your omega instincts. He is efficient. I also had him leave a generous sum of cash and a note for your roommate, Olivia, explaining that you are safe and under the protection of the Tower Pack." Lydia was furious, but the anger was quickly suffocated by the heavy, sweet scent of his security. He had anticipated every argument, every emotional resistance. "I need to talk to Olivia myself," she insisted. "Tomorrow," Jace agreed, leading her down a long corridor. "For now, you need peace." He led her into a breathtaking guest suite. It was enormous, furnished in creams and deep emeralds, with a floor-to-ceiling window offering a spectacular view of the entire city. The bathroom was the size of her entire living room. "There is a fresh suppressant in the bathroom, far stronger than the one you are currently wearing," Jace instructed. "Use it. It will help regulate the omega response to my presence. It also has a faint, identifying signature. Anyone who smells it will know you are claimed by me." He watched her reaction carefully. His dominance was absolute, yet layered with genuine care. "It's a warning system," he explained. "Until we establish a deeper bond, this scent mark will be your primary defense against rivals like Rowan." Lydia nodded, feeling the loss of control keenly. This wasn't independence, but it was survival. "I will leave you now," Jace said. He paused at the door, his eyes intense. "Lydia, understand this. I do not offer empty gestures. You are mine to protect now. Rest. Tomorrow we begin your new life." He left and the silence rushed in, vast and overwhelming. Lydia sank onto the enormous, silk-covered bed. Despite the circumstances, she felt safer than she had in years. The lingering, subtle scent of Jace's cedar musk on the pillows was a low, comforting hum in her mind. Chapter 5. The next morning, Lydia woke up feeling surprisingly rested, though still stunned. She had showered and applied the new suppressant patch. It emitted a subtle, clean scent that immediately felt like a lightweight, invisible armor. Francis, Jace's silent beta enforcer, was waiting for her downstairs. He was impeccably dressed and offered a courteous, neutral nod. "Jace is in a meeting," Francis said, his voice deep and calm. "I am to transport you to your former place of employment. He requires a formal exit." "A formal exit," Lydia repeated, mystified. "You are still technically on the roster for the early shift at the Salt and Ash kitchen. Jace wishes you to deliver the news in person. I will wait outside. And Lydia, please keep a respectful distance from the alpha chef, Philip. His scent is often volatile under stress." Francis drove her downtown to the sweltering, noise-filled, cramped kitchen of the Salt and Ash. The instant she stepped through the back door, the smells hit her. Burning oil, sweat, and the sharp, anxious scent of Philip, the head chef and low-ranking, insecure alpha. "Watson, you're late," Philip bellowed, throwing a crumpled order ticket. He was a red-faced, stocky man whose own alpha scent was always aggressively trying to compensate for his lack of status. Lydia held her head high, the Jace-provided scent patch giving her a strange, quiet confidence. Philip's aggressive scent, which usually made her flinch, now felt cheap and ineffective. "Chef Philip," Lydia said calmly, "I won't be needing the ticket, I'm giving my notice." Philip stopped chopping onions, his eyes widening in disbelief, then narrowing into an angry squint. His scent spiked again, a mix of sour rage and territorial entitlement. "Notice, you ungrateful little Omega. You think you can just walk out? You're on the hook for this whole week. Get on the fryer, or I'll see to it you never work in a decent kitchen in this city again." Lydia stood her ground. "I won't be working in a decent kitchen, chef. I'll be working in my own." Philip advanced, his face practically purple. He was about to explode when the kitchen door swung open and the entire atmosphere changed. "Jace." He walked into the hot, greasy, enclosed space wearing a tailor-made suit that looked criminally expensive. His presence instantly sucked the air and the noise out of the kitchen. His scent, cedar, smoke, and primal power, hit the staff like a silent shockwave. Every hand stopped. Every employee, beta and omega alike, instinctively dropped their posture into a shallow bow. Philip stumbled backward, his own volatile alpha scent instantly dissolving into panicked submission. Jace didn't acknowledge anyone but Lydia. He crossed the floor and took her arm, his fingers warm on her skin. "You did not tell me the workspace was this offensive, Omega," Jace stated, his voice quiet but echoing in the silence. "Jace," Philip stammered, attempting to recover some dignity. "Sir, what a surprise. Is there a problem? The line cook, Watson, was just causing trouble." Jace looked at Philip. It was not a look of anger, but of utter, cold dismissal. "You have never smelled the scent of true alpha authority, have you, Philip?" Jace said. "If you had, you would understand that you are the problem." He turned back to Lydia. "This kitchen is no longer a viable territory. I have purchased the title to this restaurant, the building, and the land it sits on. It will be torn down for a new pack development." Philip's jaw dropped, literally. You can't, I have a lease." "I bought the lease, the land, and the air rights this morning. You are relieved of your duties, Philip. You are not to enter this building again. Your severance will be deposited into your account, and you will sign a non-disclosure agreement with my legal pack by end of day." Jace looked past Philip to the nervous staff. "All employees are paid for the remainder of the month. You may collect your belongings and leave. The Salt and Ash kitchen is permanently closed." He led Lydia out the door, leaving Philip sputtering amidst the stunned kitchen crew. Outside, Francis opened the car door. As they drove away, Lydia leaned her head back, processing the swift, brutal display of power. "You closed the entire restaurant. You spent millions just so I could quit my job." "It was not just so you could quit," Jace said, taking her hand. "It was to teach the other low-rank alphas in this city a lesson. Anything that touches my Omega is mine to command, protect, or destroy. And it was also to ensure that Philip could not, as he threatened, blacklist you in the city. You are now untouchable." He looked at her, his eyes warm with possessive satisfaction. "Now, Omega, let's go look at your new territory, the Heron Street Market Bistro." Chapter 6. The Heron Street Market District was lively, artistic, and just on the cusp of booming. The property Jace had acquired was a charming, slightly derelict storefront tucked into a busy intersection. It's beautiful, Lydia breathed, looking at the large arched windows and the worn old brick. It had character, unlike the glass and steel perfection of Jace's world. It's yours to define, Jace said. He unlocked the door. Inside, the space was empty, smelling faintly of dust and forgotten spices. A thick layer of gloom covered the large front room. The title is clean, Jace explained, walking through the empty space. I've already secured the permits for structural work. The construction pack is ready to begin tomorrow. All you have to do is provide the vision, the menu, the decor, the atmosphere. We start with the scent. The scent. Every successful business, every territory has a signature scent that sets the tone, Jace explained, his voice low and educational. Yours will be designed to be calming, inviting, and utterly unique, a safe haven for omegas and betas, and a place of respect for any alpha who enters. No aggressive pheromones allowed. Lydia felt a rush of professional excitement overwhelm her omega anxiety. This was her element. She started pointing, her voice gaining strength and passion. The kitchen needs to be completely open, a performance. I want a long copper countertop so diners can watch the prep. No more hiding in the back. The menu will be refined comfort food. The things I learned working double shifts elevated. I can design the whole flow of the space. It needs better light, softer corners, a real fire hearth. Jace watched her, a genuine smile, the first she had seen, tugging at the corner of his lips. His scent softened, taking on a pleased, smoky warmth. Excellent, he said. You sound like a woman claiming her rightful territory. This isn't about claiming territory, Jace, she countered, stopping to face him. This is about my dream. I'm grateful for your help, but I won't let you confuse my independence with submission. The two are not mutually exclusive in my world, Lydia, he said, his smile fading. You are independent because of my power, not in spite of it. I gave you the protection which freed you to pursue your dream. That is the nature of the claim. I provide the safety, you provide the purpose. Together we are stronger. He pulled a small, delicate box from his suit pocket. It was velvet, deep crimson. He opened it. Inside lay a heavy, beautiful silver chain with a simple pendant, a small, dark obsidian stone carved with a single, elegant alpha rune, the mark of Jace's tower pack. This is not a collar, Omega. It is a visible sign of protection, Jace said, lifting the chain. Wear it until we establish a true, deep bond. Any alpha who sees this knows you are untouchable. Any alpha who smells the underlying signature knows you are mine. Lydia hesitated. Wearing a pack mark was a declaration. It meant giving up the pretense of being a lone Omega. It meant accepting his world. What does it cost me? She asked, her voice tight. Jace's eyes softened, his thumb brushing the cool silver. It costs you nothing but your fear. It gives me peace knowing you are safe. Allow me this, Lydia. She took a deep breath, fighting the last vestiges of resistance. The sheer weight of the protection he offered was too appealing to refuse, especially after the humiliation of the past night. Okay, Jace, she said quietly, put it on me. Jace stepped behind her. He carefully lifted her hair, the faint, comforting scent of her skin mixing with his dominant cedar. The cold silver settled around her neck. His hands lingered for a moment, resting lightly on her collarbones, his scent enveloping her entirely. Now you are truly claimed, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. No alpha will dare touch you. Chapter 7. Over the next few weeks, Lydia and Jace settled into a strange rhythm. They spent every evening together, either at the Citadel discussing the bistro plans, Lydia was now calling it the hearth, or taking long, private drives, where Jace simply watched the city that belonged to him. Lydia saw the true scope of his power. He wasn't just wealthy, he controlled the flow of information, construction, and power. Francis, the beta guard, was everywhere, an extension of Jace's authority. Finally, Jace announced their first formal date. Tonight we go to my other residence, Jace told her over breakfast one morning, a breakfast prepared by a silent beta chef who bowed when Lydia entered the room. The drive was long, winding away from the glittering urban sprawl and into the misty, forested coastal hills. The road became private, guarded by invisible security systems, until they reached the structure. The cliffside haven. It wasn't a fortress like the citadel. It was a sprawling, low-profile house carved into the rock face, overlooking a dizzying drop to the churning ocean. The architecture was all glass and natural stone, and the entire structure felt peaceful, smelling faintly of salt air and cool earth, a sharp contrast to the aggressive cedar scent of the citadel. "I built this myself," Jace said, taking her hand as they walked out onto a vast deck. "When I was younger, I used to come here to escape the pack politics. It's the only place I can truly breathe." Dinner was served on the deck as the sun dipped below the ocean. It was an extravagant, yet intimate meal, fresh seafood, fine wine, and perfect silence save for the crash of waves. Lydia felt comfortable enough now to probe his history. "You talk about pack politics like you hate them, but you are the Alpha King, you chose this power." Jace looked out at the ocean, his face momentarily distant. "I was born into it. Power is a necessity. If I don't hold the seat, someone like Rowan Charles will, and Rowan will not be kind to the city or to his Omegas." "So I'm a necessity too?" she asked, carefully stirring her wine. He turned, his gaze sharp. "You are a choice, Lydia, an irresistible one. I have watched the society Omegas parade themselves for years. Their scents are fake, their loyalty is conditional, and their ambitions are just extensions of their father's will. They would challenge my power. You only challenge my control over your independence." He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "You want to run your kitchen, not my empire. That is a relief. I have enough ambition in my life. I need honesty and peace. I found it in your faint scent of rainwater." His scent here in his quiet haven was softer, less demanding, more mountain air and less smoke. It was intoxicating. "But what about the mating bond, the true claim?" Lydia asked, lowering her voice. "That's what alphas like you seek, not just a manager for a bistro." Jace looked deep into her eyes and his hand tightened on hers. "A mating bond requires trust. For you, it requires acceptance of my power. For me, it requires the knowledge that you will not crumble when the world outside the citadel sees my claim on you. We are not there yet. I am merely courting you, Omega. I am showing you the security and the luxury you deserve." He leaned closer. "And I am waiting for the moment your own instincts recognize the claim as more than just a means of survival, but as a biological truth." Lydia felt her cheeks flush. The tension in the air was suddenly thick with unspoken promise. "Do you trust me, Lydia?" he asked, his voice low. "I trust that you are the most powerful man I have ever met," she admitted, "and that you will keep me safe from Rowan Charles. Beyond that, I don't know yet." "That is enough for now," Jace said, lifting her hand and pressing his lips to her knuckles, his scent deepening the warm, possessive signal. "Let us enjoy the safety of this place." Chapter 8. 2 weeks later, Rowan Charles made his move. Lydia was meeting Francis at the Heron Street Market Bistro, now renamed the Hearth, to finalize kitchen layout plans. The scent of fresh lumber and drywall was slowly replacing the old musty odor. Francis, calm and professional as ever, was running through the list of appliances when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his beater scent, always placid, spiked with a rare note of alarm. "Alpha," Francis said, speaking into the private line. "We have an issue. Rowan Charles has breached a security perimeter downtown. He's moving toward the citadel." "He is testing Jace's defenses," Lydia muttered, looking out the large arched window nervously. Francis looked grave. "Lydia, Jace needs me at the citadel. You must leave this district now. I have a car inbound to take you directly to the safest sublevel of the estate. Please go to the back alley now." As Francis rushed out the front, Rowan Charles walked in the back door, cutting off Lydia's only exit. Rowan was alone, but his scent, metallic, sharp, and spiced with aggressive challenge, filled the confined space. He smiled, a genuine, chilling expression of triumph. "Lydia Watson," he drawled, looking her up and down. "I must say, Jace has excellent taste. Shame he claimed you with money and not passion." Lydia stiffened, instinctively backing away toward a steel table. The Tower Pack pendant felt heavy and cold against her sternum. "You shouldn't be here, Rowan," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, backed by the strong suppressant. "Oh, but I should," Rowan countered, advancing slowly. "I came to finalize our agreement. See, Jace may have bought the debt, but he didn't buy your contract. I'm an alpha of my word, Lydia. I still want you to honor the agreement you signed 6 months ago." "I don't know what you're talking about," Lydia lied, though a cold terror was spreading through her. Rowan chuckled, a nasty, humorless sound. "You lied to Jace, didn't you? You didn't just have debt. You had a loan agreement from a shell corporation, the one I control, stating that if you failed to repay the 18,000 by the due date, you would perform services for the company for 3 years. Lydia's legs threatened to give way. The loan had seemed simple, a lifeline when she was desperate. She hadn't read the fine print, the ambiguous clause about services. Jace settled the debt, he bought it. "He bought the credit card debt, Omega," Rowan corrected with a sneer. "The loan was secured by a separate entity. I waited until I knew he was invested in you. Now I have you and I can use you to undermine his alpha authority." Rowan's sense surged, attempting to break her will. "You have a choice. Come with me now, fulfill your contract, and I promise not to hurt Jace. Or stay here, betray your contract, and watch as I tear down his territory and claim you in front of the entire city." Lydia was cornered, her head spun with panic. The security pendant felt useless. "You are a snake," she spat. "I am a better alpha than Jace," Rowan purred, reaching out to touch her face. Before his hand could make contact, the back door burst open. It was Francis, it was Jace. His scent was no longer cedar and smoke. It was thunder and raw lightning. The pheromones of a truly enraged alpha king filled the space, a brutal, overwhelming wave that crushed the air out of Lydia's lungs and caused Rowan Charles to stumble back in sudden, desperate pain. Jace was a blur of contained violence. He grabbed Rowan by the throat and slammed him against the brick wall, lifting him a foot off the floor. Rowan's struggle was pitiful, his powerful alpha scent instantly reduced to a squeal of terror. "You dared to enter my territory," Jace growled, his voice a distorted, deep sound. "You dared to place your scent on my Omega." She has a contract," Rowan gasped out. "She's lying to you about the loan. I can use her to ruin you." Jace didn't loosen his grip. He only looked at Lydia, his eyes blazing with a cold, terrifying fire. "Is this true, Lydia?" Jace demanded. "Did you keep this contract a secret from me?" Lydia looked at the two alphas, one holding the other by the throat. The fear of Jace's wrath was overwhelming, but she knew she couldn't lie. "I didn't read the fine print," she admitted, shame and panic mixing in her voice. "I was desperate. I signed something that mentioned a service contract. I kept it a secret because I knew you would claim me out of pity, not choice." Jace looked back at Rowan. "You see the depth of her shame, Rowan. You pushed a starving Omega into a corner, and you think that contract holds any legal standing. My attorneys already nullified any debt tied to her name, whether she knew about it or not. The moment I bought the Salt and Ash Kitchen building, I also bought the controlling interest in your shell corporation, Cerberus Financial." Jace squeezed his grip. Rowan's face was rapidly losing color. "You don't own me," Jace stated, "and you do not touch what is mine. This is your final warning, Rowan. Disappear from my territory. Forever." Jace released him. Rowan crumpled to the floor, coughing violently, his powerful scent utterly broken and contaminated with fear. He scrambled to his feet and ran out the back door, leaving a trail of shattered ambition behind him. Jace turned back to Lydia. He walked toward her, his fury slowly receding, replaced by a deep, possessive ache. He reached out and cupped her face, his thumb wiping a stray tear. "You are mine, Omega. Never lie to me again. Never hide your fear or your past from me. I will protect you from everything, even your own mistakes." Chapter 9. The next 48 hours were a period of intense silence and processing. Jace returned Lydia to the Citadel, where she sequestered herself in her room, struggling to reconcile the gentle man who spoke of his dreams with the ruthless alpha who had nearly broken Rowan Charles's neck. The contract, the lie of omission, the realization that she had been playing a dangerous game of independence in a world where Omegas needed pack protection to survive. Francis, ever the loyal beta guard, brought her food and spoke only in necessary, neutral tones. Finally, Jace called her to the study. He was sitting at his large, dark desk, but he wasn't working. He was simply waiting. His scent was muted, neutral, a sign of immense control, waiting for her move. "I'm sorry, Jace," Lydia said, standing before his desk. "I was ashamed. I thought if I revealed the contract, you would see me as damaged goods and leave me alone." Jace sighed, a heavy sound of weariness and frustration. "Lydia, you were a vulnerable Omega who made a desperate financial mistake. That makes you prey. It does not make you damaged goods. It simply proves that you need my protection more than you need your pride." He stood up, walking to the large window overlooking the Citadel Gardens. "I am not asking you to give up your life. I am asking you to choose me as your partner. A true mating bond is a choice, not a necessity. I am an Alpha King, Lydia. My world is dangerous. I don't need a compliant ornament. I need a mate who knows exactly who she is, what she wants, and trusts me enough to stand with me." He turned to face her. "The bistro is ready to move forward. The hearth can be open in 3 months. I will give you the full control you always wanted. But there is a condition to that independence. You must accept the claim of my protection fully. You must step into my world, not as a hired worker, but as the Omega of the Alpha King. That means being visible, being a target, and relying on me and my pack completely for your safety." Lydia swallowed, looking down at the tower pack pendant. She saw the kitchen, the copper countertop, the fire hearth, her dream, and she saw the face of Rowan Charles, his scent of aggression burning in her memory. She finally understood. Her independence had been a myth, a luxury she couldn't afford. "If I accept the claim," she said, her voice stronger than before, "it's not out of fear of Rowan or gratitude for the money. It's because I want the hearth to be real. And I want to stand beside the only alpha whose scent makes me feel safe, not small." Jace walked toward her, his movement slow and deliberate. His cedar scent began to rise, slowly, filling the room with comforting assurance. "Then choose, Lydia," he commanded gently. Lydia reached up and touched the pendant around her neck. She looked into his dark eyes. "I choose you, Jace," she said clearly. "I accept your claim. I want the mating bond." Jace's face transformed. The hard, cold lines softened, replaced by a devastating mix of relief and primal triumph. His scent surged into the room, so strong and overwhelming it made Lydia's head spin, but this time it was a warm, sweet, protective wave. He pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his broad, muscular chest. "My Omega," he growled, the word heavy with ownership and affection. He lowered his head and rubbed his chin against the sensitive skin beneath her ear, a gentle, possessive gesture of alpha marking. "We begin the mating now," he murmured, holding her tightly. "You will never be invisible again." Chapter 10. The next 3 months were a dizzying whirlwind of construction, design, and deepening intimacy. Lydia threw herself into the hearth. The large room was transformed exactly as she had envisioned. A long hammered copper bar, an open kitchen with a stunning fire hearth, and warm, dark wood and stone creating a cozy, safe atmosphere. The scent, specially formulated with Jace's pack scent masters, was a delicate mix of cinnamon, warm vanilla, and a faint, soothing hint of rainwater, Lydia's own natural scent, amplified and made permanent as the restaurant's signature. Jace, meanwhile, had begun the slow, patient process of the mating bond. He respected her space but asserted his claim constantly. His scent was everywhere in her room, his alpha tone reserved only for protection or firm encouragement, and his physical affection was possessive yet tender. She learned to read his moods through the subtle shifts in his scent, and he learned that her deepest desire wasn't diamonds, but control over her own kitchen. On the night of the hearth's grand opening, the tension was unbearable. This was the moment of her unveiling, the first time Jace would officially present his mate to his entire network, and the first time Lydia would stand in her own territory, built by her own vision, backed by the Alpha King. Olivia, Lydia's roommate, arrived early, looking around the sophisticated space in stunned admiration. Lydia, you are a genius, Olivia whispered, hugging her tightly. This is incredible. The scent is addictive. Is that your scent? It is now, Lydia smiled. It's the smell of my pack territory. Lydia wore a simple, elegant black dress, but her only jewelry was the heavy Tower Pack pendant. Her own scent, no longer suppressed but subtly enhanced by the new mating bond, was a confident, warm blend of her rainwater base mixed with the deep cedar and smoke of Jace. She smelled like an omega, claimed, secure and thriving. Jace arrived precisely at 7, sweeping in with Francis and his security detail. He wore a crisp midnight blue suit, and his alpha scent was powerful, proud, and radiating a low, satisfied hum that made Lydia's omega instincts feel supremely protected. He bypassed the dozens of assembled alphas and betas and walked straight to Lydia, taking her hand. You look like the queen of your domain, Omega, he murmured, lifting her hand to his lips. The room, filled with the elite of the city, went instantly quiet. They were waiting for the formal presentation. Jace led Lydia to the center of the room, standing beside the glowing, copper-adorned hearth she had designed. Jace's voice, amplified to command attention, resonated through the room. I want to introduce you all to the Omega of the Tower Pack. This is Lydia Watson, and this is her territory, the hearth. She built this and she runs this. You will treat her, her staff, and this establishment with the utmost respect. Any slight against the hearth is a challenge to me. He turned to Lydia, his voice dropping to the low, possessive rumble that only she was meant to hear. The protection is secured, Lydia. The claim is public. Now the final step. He took the pendant and unhooked it, placing it on the copper bar. Then he gently turned her head, exposing the soft, sensitive skin of her neck. His eyes were blazing with a passion she had never seen before. It is time to make the bond permanent, Omega. He bent his head, and in a primal, overwhelming rush of pure, raw alpha scent and heat, he buried his face in her neck. It wasn't a bite, but a powerful, physical scent marking, a long, deep inhalation and a forceful exhale of his scent directly onto her skin, overwhelming her senses and solidifying the claim in front of his entire world. Lydia gasped, her fingers gripping his shoulders, feeling the intense, dizzying pleasure of the claim settling into her bones. The mating bond, though not yet physical, was solidified. She was his and he was hers. When he pulled back, his eyes were smoky with triumph and a deep, true affection. Welcome home, mate, Jace whispered. Lydia smiled, a triumphant, confident smile that erased every memory of the lonely Omega in the alcove. Welcome to my kitchen, Alpha, she countered, her hand resting over her new scent mark. Epilogue. 6 months later. The hearth was a monumental success. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a safe haven. Omegas and betas flocked to the comforting, cinnamon and rainwater-scented space, drawn by the incredible food and the absolute sense of safety. Even the most aggressive alphas behaved in the hearth, knowing whose mate was running the show. Lydia was in the kitchen, perfectly in her element, calm, confident, giving sharp, cheerful instructions to her staff. Her omega scent was now a stable, warm rainwater and cedar mixture, the fragrance of a satisfied, cherished mate. The door to the kitchen swung open and Jace walked in. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in dark trousers and a simple sweater, looking relaxed and domestic. Francis waited discreetly by the door. Jace walked straight past the busy line and pulled Lydia into a quick, firm embrace, rubbing his chin against her scent mark, a daily ritual. It smells better than ever, mate, he murmured. You're early, Lydia said, leaning into his strength, then pulling away with a professional glare. You know I hate distractions during the dinner rush. I came to take you home, he said, his eyes alight with affection. The citadel is quiet tonight, and your alpha requires his mate to complete the bond, permanently. Lydia's breath hitched. They had waited. The relationship had been built on trust, respect, and shared purpose before the final biological act. Now they were ready. Did you bring my overnight bag? She asked, fighting a blush. Jace smiled, a warm, genuine smile that could melt steel. I brought everything. including the papers that officially change the property deed to your name alone. No pack influence, just yours. Lydia stared at him, overwhelmed by the final, perfect gesture of trust. I told you, Omega, Jace said, taking her hand and leading her out of the noise and heat of her kitchen. My wealth is not yours to worry about. Your independence is non-negotiable. I will simply be the alpha who stands behind you, keeping the whole world away while you burn brightly. As they walked out the front door and into the private car waiting on the quiet Heron Street, Lydia looked back at the hearth. It was packed, warm and secure, her space. She leaned into Jace's shoulder, inhaling the comforting, dominant scent of cedar and smoke. She was no longer the poor, ignored Omega in the corner. She was the visible, confident mate of the Alpha King, and she was finally home. If you enjoyed the story, you know how much work went into building this world. Don't let all that effort go unrewarded. Show your loyalty to my channel by subscribing now. Thank you.